Nice. Yeah, NFL this morning, NBA this afternoon, golf to finish it. It's like a full course meal.
Champions League screwed it all up today.
Oh shit! What happened?
What didn't happen? Liverpool, man.
Oh, just a disaster. Josh in a bad mood.
No, they won. They scored twice immediately, and they just parked they were just
Park the bus.
Yeah. They really could have laid it on, and I needed them. I had over 2.5 in the game, but
fun. Mo Salah's a god.
Let's give it a whirl. All right, it is that time once again. What's up, everybody? Welcome to PGA DFS Live Before Lock here at Awesemo.com. I am Ben Rasa. I am joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Lindquist. We are here to talk a little. I'm going to struggle, man. The worldwide, I'm not going to lie. This is OHL Mayakoba to me. I know they got a new sponsor, Worldwide Technology, but we are here to talk Mayakoba Golf Classic. One of my favorites of the early golf season. How about you?
Yeah, it's a fun one. And for me, I basically lost one. Jason Roslin, I thought for sure, just whenever I think of this golf tournament, you have to think of Matt Kuchar. It's the first thing and the only thing that should be on your mind when you think about this golf tournament. And stiffing a caddy after winning, nearly $2 million. Big paycheck, lots of, I guess also Justin Thomas and everybody on a roof watching whoever, I think it was Rickie Fowler who made the putt, and they were all in their robes sitting on top of a roof. Have you seen that video as well?
You got memories that I see. The only thing I remember from this tournament is Aaron Wise losing in the playoff last year, because that was a bad one for me. That hurt. That one really did. It stung. But you know what? It's been a memorable one. The thing I like, we do get some of the marquee players decide to make the trek to Mexico and take on this tournament. We get a little insight into how their game is before we get to Sony and whatnot, and we get some value potential by low spots. So let's get into it as we always do, with some weather, with some withdrawals. I mean, in Bermuda, we were talking about hurricane force winds. That doesn't seem to be the case here. It looks a lot better. Yeah,
it looks a little bit more benign. This bodes well for a player that I think you and I are both going to be on this week, and I'm excited to talk about. It rhymes with Schmicky Schmauler, so that'll be an exciting talking point for both of us. I like this golf tournament a lot. I like that it's not going to be a hurricane. We've seen some really bad weather at this track before, if I can recall correctly, but looks like we're going to be in the clear this time.
Yeah, and I think that really, we still can. Doesn't mean you can't play for weather edges. Doesn't mean you can't stack tee times. But if you have a small amount of lineups, or you just don't want to deal with that, I don't think you're sacrificing a ton by just building straight up. It doesn't seem to be any massive edges. I think the course will be pretty receptive. I don't expect any outliers in terms of scoring abilities.
Yeah, neither do I. And the one major thing, so this is getting played if you're keeping track at home. Playa del Carmen is the track. After my Bermuda, Bahama mix-up last week, I thought I wanted to make sure that I was clear on what the weather looked like, and going to be a little bit of rain tomorrow, but no wind. And you get no wind on a wet golf course, and these guys are going to just tear it apart on Thursday. Friday, also pretty down, it looks like, the entire day. I don't know if there's any tee time stack you can make off of a precipitation chance. I'm not going to. It sounds ridiculous. I think you are in a full field. It's going to be fair. I don't think that there's going to be any kind of wind that pops up. This feels like we're close enough. It should be accurate, and everybody's going to have a pretty fair draw.
No doubt. And just looking at it from that perspective, before we get into our, all the things, the course, the ranges.
How excited are you? Come on, Ben.
I am excited. I am. I'm just taking it all in. Is there anything, though, that you look at? Because we've had so many awkward tournaments, whether it's small fields or fields that are just so bad, no offense to the previous golfers. This resembles more of an actual PGA Tour event. Do you alter anything, or do you just take it week to week and kind of go into it with the same mindset?
Dude, I'm playing a DFS slate every single day in like 4 different sports. And it kind of like, for me, it's like a stars and scrubs slate where you have, your top end value in NBA, and you want to be able to fit them if you can, if there's plays you like. I'm obsessed with the 7K range this week. So I think it gives me some opportunities to play. I don't know how many times I've said flat out that I'm going to play one of the top 2 or 3 highest owned plays that I possibly can here, but I think that there's some viability to it. I don't think the upper 6s are that bad. I think the 7K range is beautiful. I think you can play the combination of Justin Thomas, Hovland, and Answer together in some kind of capacity, 2 of the 3, obviously, more so than in a given week. And, when you talk about having it be a regular tour event, part of that is just saying that the top class is actually the top class as opposed to the faux top class that we've had for, 2-3 weeks.
No doubt about it. And we're going to get into them. But before we do, as we always talk about, our friends and sponsors of this show at Monkey Knife Fight have a fantastic format. If you are not familiar with them, there is no better time and no better reason to get over there and check it out. Give it a try. Player prop based contest, super easy to play, not a huge time commitment. And it's not just with golf. They've got NBA, they've got NFL, UFC, any of the major sports. If you want to try it out, it is available. To get started, head over to monkeyknifefight.com. Choose what game you want to play, your contest type, buy-in level, all the same things that you're doing week in and week out. And better yet, when you do it, use that promo code Awesemo. You're going to get an instant deposit bonus of up to $100. No reason not to give it a try, build that bankroll. And we talk about a lot, Eric, they have different formats over there, high or low, rapid fire, more or less. They've got one JT over Answer for fantasy points. I know Answer's got the hometown love, but man, it's hard not to like Justin Thomas in something like that. How many birdies will a guy make? You can go over, under. A lot of different formats at Monkey Knife Fight.
Yeah, and then you can play stuff like the Eagle Eye, where you're playing for eagles, which, on certain golf courses where you think it's going to be calm, where you think that there can be a lot of scoring, that's something that kind of sets up as kind of an interesting play. I mean, we're back to a little bit more, what is it? El Camaleon? Did I say that correctly? Okay, cool. I get an A for the day after mucking up pronunciations left and right in NBA, but 4 par 5s, all are pretty gettable. It looks like that are pretty simple. So I'm looking at this golf course as a place where you can maybe play some of those Eagle Eye contests, something that I've never really talked about on this. But a number of guys that maybe can be very strong off the tee, put themselves in good positions. You can basically group it by par 5 scoring as well. But you want to make sure you're playing good players who can make the cut and get more opportunities at those eagles. So even like an over on 3.5, it pays 3-1 on that number, something like that, where you could maybe find a couple players for that. The Birdie Fest we've talked about many times. I think there's just so many fun game types for a golf tournament like this. And now that we know that the weather is going to be respectable as opposed to last week where it was not, this will be kind of more advantageous for scoring.
No doubt. And that's what I like about it. If you have a guy that you're really high on, there's a lot of different ways that you can get exposure. You can take him head to head against a different golfer. You can just take his scoring and say he's going to score, 17 or more birdies or something like that. Or you can link him up in one of those, multiplier type things, get a nice payout if you can get it correct. So definitely go check out Monkey Knife Fight. A lot to break down there. You already mentioned El Camaleon, whatever this place is called. It's been here. This is the good news. I believe this tournament has been played at this same venue for quite a while now. So we have a lot of course history. When you see that, do you factor in what we've seen in past years more, or do you say, it's still very fluky, it's very noisy? How do you go about that?
Well, it's super easy. I mean, there's a site that you and I use that can work out very easily to be able to find course history data, to be able to plug and play some of these guys. I think it's always fascinating to look at if there's somebody like a Billy Horschel who's stroking at this place #1 amongst everybody, but I don't really care because I don't want to roster Billy Horschel. So there's things like that. Emiliano Grillo, #2 in course history. How does that feel? I mean, there's things you can draw from it, but I'm not in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line. So just like anything, if a guy dominates with the course history, he's going to come in with inflated ownership. So you're losing some value right off the bat in that regard. But there's also, maybe there's something to the course that he really responds to. I mean, take Grillo, for example. It's not crazy to think that he likes this course. It really caters to kind of what he does best, his skill set. So as we talk about a lot, I think the line that I always go with is not course history, but course fit. If a guy fits the course, I don't really care what the results are. They should ultimately translate long-term.
That's the right approach to it. And somebody that can just be a pure ball striker and get off the tee, be, competent with irons, and then, can get a hot putting week, you're looking at somebody who can definitely go out and win a golf tournament like this in Grillo. Yeah, there's water hazards, I believe, on what did Jason say yesterday? Every single hole that there's a water hazard. So
that's not good.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, Rickie Fowler, let's go.
Yeah, Rickie's going to be a very interesting name and one we are obviously going to get to. Anything else on the course? I mean, it's a par 71. It's not overly long. It's just a pretty standard test of golf, sub 7,200 yards. They got those weird greens that you see in the islands, the Paspalum or whatever it's called. Again, not a crazy different track, but also not a very typical layout either.
Yeah, it's Paspalum. I always love grouping that by grass type, and you can never get anybody to really pop in that kind of a regard. I mean, I think of Paspalum as like a Bermuda type. I mean, is that kind of the closest that we're going to find to it? Isn't that what we had on South Carolina this year for the PGA?
Yeah, I think that was right at Kiawah.
At Kiawah Island, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing to know, this is what I always think about. We just don't have a lot of sample size. There are some guys that may have only played on this type of surface a couple times. I don't think it's a big deal. Knowing that Grillo plays well is probably a detriment to good putters, and it probably helps bad putters. I don't make a ton of the grass that they're playing on.
Yeah, I'm not either. I think tried to find some kind of relation to it. I think Kikuya was another thing when we were leading up to the SC or to the PGA Championship. Oh, good old Kikuya out here in Southern California. That is the grass type du jour. It doesn't need a ton of water. It can kind of survive in any kind of a situation. So yeah, you're going to see some of these resort coastal spots where maybe there's not a ton of water coming in there. The Paspalum, I think Kiawah Island also kind of fits that way. It makes sense. So I'm going to have no grass takes on this show today.
Yeah. And just looking at the course, digging in a little more, nothing really stands out. You want to be good with your irons. You can get back in position if you're in the bunkers and whatnot. It's not a death scrambling situation. The par fours, pretty pedestrian. You've got some, 450 plus, got a couple 350 to 400 though. A nice spread of all different types of holes, attackable par fives. So like any tournament, ball striking, I don't think driving is really important here. You can lay back, you can lean on the irons. You always want to convert with the putts, but I also don't think this is going to be a straight putting contest.
Yeah, neither do I. It's going to be a little bit more. I mean, it's a resort course with the ability to have teeth, but the wind definitely is going to play, I think, into the hands. And now having a chance of precipitation, if this place gets a little bit wet, I mean, guys on tour are just going to rip it apart, and you're going to have this opportunity to have some scoring be a little bit more featured. But I would say that there is a little bit more blow up risk on a golf course like this than you'd normally find for your standard run of the mill resort course.
And is that just because of, the actual penalty for going in the water?
Yeah. I mean, you have like the 3M that we talked about, where 3M, pretty easy golf course, but if you're off the tee, you're going to make some big numbers here and there, and it's going to be a big detriment. I think DK scoring, you can kind of throw some of that out, but you got to make some cuts. And if you're not sharp, if you're somebody that, I mean, I wanted to play some Steven Yeager, and the more I'm going into this golf tournament, it's a guy like that. Hey, I'm just throwing out a name to start. I'm just going to throw it out there. My boy. Yeah. 6,800. I'm thinking that this might be a little bit too, I'm emphasizing a little bit more ball striking, and he's somebody who just kind of excels around the greens, making some putts. And it looks like some bad putters. I said yesterday, I was looking forward to rostering a ton of them this week. That's kind of the theme of my builds. It looks like, but it doesn't seem like it's as pronounced as it is on other venues. So yeah, I'm going to be going more to the ball striking categories.
Fair enough. I'm very in line with that. And yeah, you're going to incur some extra variance just because, a shot that's offline at a tournament without water, you get a bad bounce, you're in the rough. If you get a bad bounce where you're off and you're in the water, it's a full stroke penalty, and it can really rev that up. You just got to deal with that. There's really no way in my mind to quantify it. It's just the nature of it. You want your guys to be precise. I don't think there'll be a ton of risk off the tee anyway, but let's get into it. We've got the top tier here, and we've got some real names. You mentioned this is a real top tier. Justin Thomas leads us off, 11,200. Defending champ Victor Hovland is next at 10.9. Answer, Finau, Hatton, Horschel, Brooks. A lot of options to choose from. So you've got 7 names north of 10. I assume that gives you more appeal to actually paying up for one of these guys rather than going balanced.
Yeah, Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, Abraham Answer. I'd be surprised Haven't gone crazy building yet, but I'd be surprised if I didn't get one of three, at least one of the three in every single lineup that I build this week. I think it's very easy. I'm in love with the 7K range. We've already talked about that. I just think that top tier of those three specifically, Justin Thomas with Bones, if we can get some putters, if we can get some putts to fall and that putter can heat up a little bit, you're looking at some major positive regression for Justin Thomas coming off of, outside of one good appearance at the Players Championship, just kind of a down year for him altogether. So 11-2 for him. I'm happy to be going up to him, especially considering he's getting less attention than the other two, but I still really like Victor Hovland. I still really like Abraham Answer. It's kind of the bottom of the 10K tier that I'm not really getting to very often, but those top three, I'm just kind of obsessed with making sure I get one of them in every lineup.
Yeah, I mean, even in the betting market, looking across the industry, those guys, they've got a pretty firm stranglehold on the top of the board. JT, of course, the betting favorite. And then you've got, Finau and Scheffler types, but these three, it's hard not to look to them. And listen, I think that JT is the best player in the field. I think he's definitely the most likely winner. I'm not going to, even though I always say this and then I do it, I'm not going to try to play psychiatrist, but I do think that JT getting off to a quick start this year would be important. He really, at times had ebbs and flows last year. He won the Players, but it wasn't up to his standards, I would say. So I think this could be a good catalyst. I think there are no bad courses when you're that good. Hovland proved that last year. I don't picture Victor Hovland and OHL Mayakoba to be the perfect fit. And here we are. He is the defending champ. What do you make of, I do want to ask you though about Tony Finau, who's the fourth name. It's kind of a drop. We haven't seen him a ton. He played at the CJ Cup. It was very uneventful. Any thoughts on him, or are you just kind of indifferent?
Not just indifferent. I just don't flat out like him this week. I think looking at his last 50 rounds of golf, last 24 rounds of golf, different groupings of him, just all of his stats across the board, aside from the 1 week, have just kind of been down. And I don't really know what to make of it. Of course, he's somebody that can excel off the tee from time to time, but even amongst this field in the last 50 rounds, 39th in strokes gained off the tee. That's not very impressive to be paying 10-6 for. 15th around the greens is his best stat that he has out of anything. And then 77th with the putter. I mean, yeah, not putting well. Generally been a better ball striker than this, but I mean, short term, can Tony Finau go out and, win a golf tournament like he won the Northern Trust? Sure. Yeah, he can. He played decent enough coming down the stretch, but that putter has immediately regressed at the Tour Championship, the CJ Cup. I feel like guys like him kind of check out towards the end of the season. This is kind of a nice spot for a payday. And I think maybe they'll be a little bit more inclined to sharpen up and tune up before they have a little bit of a layoff here, but I'm not going to be playing Tony Finau. I don't really find a need for it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's a very, very world-class player. We know the wins are going to come more. And we saw one at the end of the year. I think he'll add probably a couple more this year. That's not even a crazy take at this point. Nope. But at the same time, I do think if you're going to tell me I can get $600 to go get JT, I'll do that. I'd also drop if I had to. It's a little tricky. I think that Billy Ho, he feels a little overpriced in my mind. I know there's easy ways to justify it. And this is a guy that, we did see him go to Europe and have some success and whatnot. I would rather go get these other guys, Hatton, Brooks, even. Where do you go with those type of guys? I know Brooks is always a polarizing topic.
Man, this is fascinating. I'm starting to think like we're having this little bit of a brain meld doing shows together because, on the show yesterday, that's exactly what I'm doing. I think Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, Abraham Answer make such markedly better plays compared to Finau, Hatton, Horschel, that I'm just finding myself up in that range more. And, if you want to scattershot Tony Finau, does he have win equity? Of course he does. But I'm going to say if you play this golf tournament 100 times in these exact situations, I think you're going to find those top three just play better in the long run. And I just think that they're more equipped for this golf course based on current form, based on course history for a couple of these guys outside of Billy Horschel, which I'm just kind of writing off. I just don't think he's a 10-1 golfer. And has he had some success here? Sure. But I just don't really find myself falling in line with him here at 10-1. I'm going to kind of write off that what was it? The European PGA that he ended up winning at Royal Berkshire, the major staple that they have for that BMW championship deal that they have in Europe. He played fantastic there, hit that wedge shot close on 18. I still don't care. He's kind of a write-off for me this week.
What do you do with Brooks though? So Brooks is a guy, is he healthy? Does he care? Obviously he shows up in majors. It seems like another candidate for maybe this tournament is either a catalyst to see where he's at. He has played a couple times in the swing season and he hasn't done much. He's been good off the tee. His irons are broken. Putter is uneventful. Where is Brooks? Is he overpriced? Is he underpriced? Is it just right?
He missed the cut last year here, 2019. Yeah. So let's see if he decided to play some golf in 2019 there. Let's find it. I don't see it. Nope, he did not play there. I'm just not a big fan of playing uninvolved Brooks Koepka on a golf tournament that isn't, I don't even know, because it's not quantifiable. I'm not sitting here saying that this is something like, if you look at the equity of the field, I mean, the guy has more majors than anybody in the field. He's definitely more equipped to win more of
combined.
them. Combined. Yeah, like legitimately. You have JT with one, you have any other major, Justin Rose down there all the way at the bottom, but like there are some guys that we're looking at that, Brooks Koepka is the best golfer that has a best career so far out of anybody in this grouping, just based on majors, if that's how you judge a player. But this is not a major, and this is just another spot where at 10K, I don't find myself needing to get to him. I think that there's a lot of other people that are going to be a little bit better plays for me. Brooks Koepka has not been sharp as it is, so I think he's kind of an easy write-off as well, but that is always scary to say about a dude who has the pedigree that he does.
I mean, you can't play everyone. Simple fact. You're not going to be overweight on all the good players in this field because there's actually a good amount of them. So I get it. Something like Brooks, I looked at the ownership. He's not popular, but he's also not to a level where I would say, okay, it's worth rolling the dice a ton and making a priority. Give me Scheffler over him. Give me some of these guys up top. And then you've got Aaron Wise, who is going to be very popular. That is very frustrating, but it is warranted at the same time. He is a noted coastal type guy. As I mentioned, lost in the playoff here, third at Bermuda. Mm-hmm. He's got kind of a theme, and I think this is it. And he also has had some reps recently, and he's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he's a really, really good play. And now we're getting into the better plays portion of the program. Patrick Reed having a pulse. That was great. Very excited to see that. I'm probably going to have way too much of him this week. Aaron Wise as well. I think that they're both fantastic plays. I feel comfortable. I think you could pretty easily play one of those guys in the top end, another one down here on the bottom end. And I'm just finding myself landing on Aaron Wise more than I'm not. So yeah, him and Patrick Reed, just fantastic plays in this mid 9K range. Scheffler was a guy that yesterday I thought I would be probably going to get to more of, but the more I kind of look at it, I'm not enamored with him. Compared to the rest of the range, it's just so easy for me to go get one of those top three studs. And then Wise, just the current form for him, it's blistering green on Fantasy Cruncher and a number of other spots where those are generally good stats to see out of somebody. Hopefully he can use his little broom putter and scrape a couple in this week for us.
Yeah, Scheffler's an awkward price in the sense that I think it's a little thin. Not that you can't do this, but I'd prefer not to start with him. And if you don't start with him, you're paying a premium for your second man in, and you're not going to be able to get like Reed or Wise unless you do something crazy with the rest of your lineup. So that makes it tough. And then the last thing I want to ask you about this range, there are two guys at the bottom of the nines that are real good players. I don't know if they fit this course, and that would be Matthew Wolff and Will Z. Will Z obviously was unstoppable. It hasn't been great lately, but it's just a couple tournaments. I mean, I'm not going to say, are we hitting the panic button? Because that's ridiculous, but is he a 9K golfer at this point, or do we want to see him rekindle that form?
He's probably a 9K golfer in this field, but that being said, I don't really find myself clicking on him either. Matthew Wolff is probably for me one of the easier write-offs. The Shriners, he had some real success on that golf course. I think he's like a strong candidate for horses for courses out there for that Shriners, but I'm not really landing on either of them as well. I'm very, very consolidated. Even making 150, I'm finding that I'm probably not going to be getting to many shares outside of my core group of guys. And they're not really making the cut here for me at 92 and 9,100. We've been playing them when, Matthew Wolf was much cheaper. I mean, going down to the Shriners, he was 8,200 that week. Now he's 9,200 on a golf course that I don't think suits him nearly as well. Not that that's a hot take at all based on course history, but then Will Zalatoris just hasn't been as good. I feel like there's always like a name recognition bump that you get from him. He played well at the Masters, and I think that really does bode well in the public's mind, public casual players. And, he's a phenomenal ball striker, no question about it, but I don't think that he's played up to this salary for quite some time. So I'm still going to be a pass on him. Think that I might get a share or two on 150, but it will not be anything close to like a 10% number.
Yeah, I think that's more than reasonable. He's a great player. He's going to be really good for a long time. It's just not really clicking right now. And you have so many options, both north and south of that price tag. So for me, extra shares of Wise, which you need if you want to get over, because he's going to be very popular. Extra shares of Patrick Reed. What about Taylor Gooch, though, who he seems overpriced, but this guy's irons in particular are as good as anyone in the field. He's a pretty weak driver of the ball, but I don't think that's a huge deal here. 5th at CJ Cup, 11th at Shriners, 4th at Fortnite. I mean, the guy's playing unbelievable golf.
Yeah, I have a ton of him. I'm going to have a ton of him. I think we brought his name up on pretty much every show that he's appeared in. And I mean, somebody that just hasn't done you wrong at any point in time during the course of this fall season. I mean, he's just been really good. He's been super cheap. I would say that's obviously the major thing is that we got him at 7,600 at the Shriners, 8K at the Fortinet, where he played really, really well there, put himself in a position where he could have won that golf tournament. But Taylor Gooch 9K looks ridiculous. But then you look at some of the stats and, off the tee, yeah, you said 108th now is the exact number in his last 50 rounds compared to this field. But he's so good around the greens as well to go along with his strokes gain approach. And then, if you can get the putter to get hot, Taylor Gooch is as much of like a flyer. I'm going to have him on my betting card. I think you should probably do it too.
Oh, interesting. So you like him potentially in the outright market?
I think he's an outright. I think he's very, very live. I have 5 guys that I'm going to bet this week. Last week was kind of I have no idea how to even begin to bet this golf tournament. But I think Taylor Gooch is a guy that I've circled on the card this week.
Upwards of 50-1 out there, depending on where you're looking. So it's not a bad price in this field. Let's keep moving. We'll go to that mid-range. You got like Tringale, Fitzy, Sergio, Rickie, Maverick, a lot of names in the 8s. I think if you're going balance, you could pepper this range and feel pretty comfortable. Is there a guy that sticks out to you either as someone your priority or one that you say, you know what, I'm going to leave this guy off?
Rickie Fowler. I mean, what are we going to do?
Which way?
He's 6% and we're going to play him, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Just making sure.
We're going to play him. We're going to play Rickie Fowler. He's like 9% right now. I don't really know what to say. He's right now currently 6. Yeah, 6% is the number in our projections. And he is, I think, and I'm just throwing it out there, I think he's turning a corner in his golf game a little bit. I think the golf course is going to play easier. For me, it really came down to seeing what this weather looked like as we got closer, making sure it wasn't going to be super windy and crazy, because Rickie Fowler, definite blow up potential. But, as a guy who played a lot of really good golf in the state of Florida, yeah, does he have blow up hole risk? Yeah, but so does everybody else in this field. I think Rickie Fowler is equipped just from a ball striking perspective. The putter looks like it's going to probably, it can't get a whole lot worse than we've seen for the last year and a half. So the CJ Cup ends up a third up at the CJ Cup. That was the first time we've seen him have a pulse. I kind of write off the Zozo. You fly across to Japan and, you don't factor that as much into your analysis, but the golf course played really hard compared to what I was expecting in Japan as well. And seeing Rickie Fowler light it up, that's kind of what you're looking for some of these guys, I think, going to this golf course for this particular week. And so it's somebody who's going to just get no traction. He was a guy that I had circled pretty early yesterday that it's like, man, I'm going to be aggressively over on Rickie Fowler.
I have no problem with Rickie. I've played him through this. I played him at the non-cut and he was really good there. Couldn't, unfortunately, fend off Rory, but that's a tough ask for anyone. The thing that's weird, Rickie is starting to transform his game. And does that mean that maybe some of the courses that used to fit him don't? And what I mean by that is Rickie at the CJ Cup dominated off the tee. Like dominant, absolutely gained 5.5 strokes off the tee. He lost 1.5 strokes putting. That is the opposite of what we used to see for Rickie forever. He used to be very good with the irons and certainly an elite putter. I do think he still can certainly get around these coastal tracks. I just don't know if this is Mayakoba of old for him, given the transformation his game has endured.
Counter argument. This bodes really, really well for his golf game because I expect the things that he's always been good at to regress towards the mean. And if we get that, if we get him driving the golf ball, you're looking at a guy who could start contending in golf tournaments on the weekly basis once again. And so for me, I see it only as a plus and only as a positive that if he gains something like 5.5 strokes off the tee, like he did at the CJ Cup, that he's going to be somebody who finds himself in contention quite frequently going forward. And he goes through these streaks. We saw at the PGA, he backdoored a top 10 there. The Memorial, he played decent enough. I know that you were on him there as well. We've seen some smattering of form from him, but it really comes down to, for me, him just seeing that putter start to flash again. And we've seen it flash even in golf tournaments where he didn't necessarily hit it that well. 5.7 strokes gained at the 3M Open, seeing 4.4 back at that PGA. I mean, for me, that's the thing of yore where we talked about him just being broken on the greens. If he's hitting the ball well off the tee and putting well, I mean, this is somebody who could legitimately, he's another bet, by the way. Him and Taylor Gooch are two guys I have bet and circled on the card this week.
I mean, I'm not going to push back on that. I've been waiting for it kind of to all click. This is an important year for Rickie. He's shown flashes of it, but he needs to be way more consistent than he's been. He shouldn't be flirting around the FedEx 125 by any stretch. And these swing season tournaments would go a long way into that. A couple other names though, you've got the Euros and Fitzy and Sergio. Then you've got Maverick, who I know that's someone you've seemed to have interest in more often than not. A guy we're kind of waiting for. Almost broke through about a month ago at the beginning of the swing season. Where is he? Is he, a target? Is he just indifferent for you?
Not indifferent, because I mean, I would probably be remiss if he went out and won this golf tournament. I'm not going to bet him, but I'm going to have a little bit of exposure. For me, it really turns into the 7K range pretty quickly here. I like Maverick, I like Rickie, I like Noren, and then I'm just not going to be going to the Keegan Bradley kind of play. So for me, I am landing a little bit more in the mid eights there. Maverick McNealy, he's going to be one of the best putters on tour eventually here at some point. Alex Noren is one of the best putters on tour. But for me, the strokes gain approach is always concerning in kind of a shootout form for Maverick McNealy. But so good off the tee, so good around the green, going to be a fantastic putter. I just know that to be true. So I think Maverick McNealy is definitely a guy that you can smatter into lineups, but not going to be any part. If you're playing like 3Max or mains, I'm not going to have any Maverick McNealy in those.
Yeah, he's pretty popular looking at our premium ownership, which is one of the many things you can get in the PGA package. Almost 15%. Everyone around him is basically half. And I don't think it's that, like, are you telling me he's 2 times as likely to beat Noren? I would say no. Double as likely? No for me.
Yep. That's I know that sounds rudimentary when you start breaking it down that way, but in golf, it's a game of small edges. Like, we're trying to mine out small edges, and yeah, you can't have super FOMO. Like, for me, if Maverick McNealy went out and won this golf tournament, yeah, I'll probably get on this show next week and probably be very upset because I know that I will not have as much of Maverick McNealy as I've had in weeks past, but you basically play with the data you have in front of you, and Maverick McNealy being around 10% plus, I just don't think it's justified, especially when you talk about the 7K range that is just phenomenal and really sticks out to me. And I can combine them with a ton of studs. Just going to be harder for me to land on a guy like that who's already popular if I want to play other popular options.
Yeah, I mean, you can't play everyone. And when these guys amass ownership in the swing season, I'll be honest, even though Aaron Wise is one of my favorite golfers, I've been playing him a lot. I don't think this is the best spot to play him. I do like it in the sense of the course fit, but you're talking about a lot of ownership up there. I am going to do it just because of the rest of my lineups as we work down. I think I'm pretty different, so I don't have to worry about it. But if you're really looking to be unique, you have to start factoring that in once you start getting the cumulative nature of your lineups.
Yep, I think that's sharp. And you can have your guys, but you have to also be rational. You have to be rational, and you have to look at it at the board. Nothing like hitting 100% Steve Stricker to really get your blood going at the John Deere. But, there's stuff like that where if somebody's going to be popular and you like it, yeah, no, I'm a thinker, whatever. But
a great thinker of our time.
Yeah, he made the cut.
Steve Stricker.
That's the nicest thing that I can possibly say about that week for myself. But there are spots where you want to when you have conviction, you want to be able to back your conviction so long as it matches up with data, and we have the data that helps you do that. So I'm looking at the projections. I see an ownership projection that just doesn't match what I've been able to get for Maverick McNealy of late, or I've gotten exposure to him in tournaments where the field just hasn't been nearly this strong. So yeah, he ends up being kind of a little bit more of a pass than he normally is for this given week.
As we work down to the, the lower 8K range, I think it starts to thin out. You've got Russell Henley, who, okay, I see it. I don't mind it, but why is he so popular? That's very, very surprising. You've got Mito also very, very popular. So talk about those guys. I mean, what do you do when you see that type of ownership on two mid-range plays?
Russell Henley hasn't even played well here. Back-to-back missed cuts. I don't get it. And I like Russell Henley. He's normally one of my boys. 22.4% is one of the easier passes that we've had of this entire fall season. And I don't think it's remotely close. I don't see what it is that makes people want to be enthralled with playing him. He played decent at the Shriners, but who didn't play decent at the Shriners?
So his irons have been ridiculous. He can't putt right now. I think that's what people are going off. He's gained 12.5 strokes in the last two events on the approach, and he's lost 6.5 putting. So I think it's just a simple flip of that and you're in business, but I agree. I don't think this is warranted.
It's absurd. You should scattershot the entire range as opposed to playing 22% of him. In fact, I mean, I just ran my first crunch. I have 4% of him, and I'm probably just going to maybe just remove him from the pool at that number and just kind of take a very aggressive stand against him. You don't have to do that in 150. I just kind of like to be a little bit more aggressive with it. I'm not going to get to him in any kind of a main build as it is, but 22.4% for him to be legitimately the second most popular player is pretty egregious right now.
I think he's actually a very interesting candidate to bet.
Maybe I'll do that.
You're going to capture the pure upside. And if he happens to, or even top five, if he happens to do that, great. You hit a nice bet. If he doesn't, okay, you lose your bet, but you're probably in pretty good shape on the DFS side. I know his pricing gives a lot of flexibility there where he could still hurt you a little bit. But to me, Russell Henley still has serious upside, but I don't see why he would be this popular. You talk about direct pivots. You've got Noren $200 more. Mito's right below him. He's really popular. Then you got Bez, Justin Rose, Neiman, Hoffman, Seamus. I like a lot of those guys. Give me the reduced ownership and a couple $100 to spend.
All right. So now, I mean, I've been teasing it the entire time. I find it hard not to want to play every single one of the upper 7K guys. Legitimately, I can make a case for pretty much every single person up here. My personal favorites: Justin Rose, Joaquin Neiman. Seamus Power is at 5.2% at 7,700. Are you kidding me right now?
Talk to me about Rose in particular.
Okay. So Rose was a guy that I didn't expect that I was going to be playing. And you start doing the work on looking into it during the course of this kind of a week. We already know that he lives out in, he lives in wherever they play that golf tournament that they always play. Why am I blanking on it right now? I literally had this entire Justin Rose speech in my head.
Nassau?
Yeah, in Nassau. They literally have that golf tournament where Tiger Woods played, that he did the host golf tournament there next to Atlantis or wherever the hell it is. I think it's somewhere over there. But regardless, Justin Rose, he's a guy that you can never really peg for when he's going to be going off in some of these spots, but has played really well at the PGA Championship, coming back from last year, past Palm. So top 10 there. Some of these coastal tracks, RBC Heritage, top 15 there. Charles Schwab third, that's not applicable here, but looking at some of these the Hero, there it is, fifth, that he ended up getting there in 2019. That's the kind of golf course that we're looking at playing here. And it seems like he plays this, not that I said I was not going to have any grass takes. I promised I wasn't going to have any grass takes, but I have golf course type takes. And I just think that this might set up well. He's been extremely hot with the putter compared to what the average golf fan might expect for a guy like Justin Rose. He's had some massive, and I mean 11.7 strokes gained, 6.2 strokes gained. He's gained in his last two, didn't play well at the CJ Cup, 10th at Wyndham. It's been kind of a guy who I think has been coasting a little bit here, but this is kind of a really nice buy low opportunity on somebody like Justin Rose. Talk about the pedigree, talk about everything else you want to, but I think the putter, as long as that's going to be intact, where he has this kind of an upside, he's going to start hitting the ball better because he's Justin Rose. He's an absolute machine. Everybody on tour talks about it all the time. When tour players walk by on the range, they generally watch him because his shot dispersion is a joke how good he is. So sign me up. I'm going to have a crazy amount of Justin Rose this week.
That is really surprising to me.
Yeah, I didn't expect it either, but it was just a play that at 10% or something, I want 30%. Like I just do.
Okay. No, I mean, listen, I think for me, I'm not there in that regard. I like some of the other guys. I think there's a reasonable question to ask. Is Rose that good anymore? I mean, he shows up in the majors week to week, though. I don't know what you're getting. The putter's been absolutely fantastic. Spoke about some of those things in the past in terms of comps and whatnot. He does live on an island. I don't know. There you go. Top 5 at the Hero. There's only like 9 guys in that, but I like where your head's at in terms of a potential leverage spot with Justin Rose, because and I know you'll agree with this, if Justin Rose plays good here, you could kiss 7K Justin Rose goodbye. He'll be back in the 9K range immediately, and the ownership will go with him.
Yeah, and I feel that way about Joaquin Niemann and Seamus Power, where Joaquin Niemann hasn't been very good either. But I mean, I am obsessed with the 7K range up and down the entire board outside of like Brian Harmon. But I can pretty much make a case for everybody else. Your boy, we'll be talking about in a second. But yeah, this top end, Joaquin Niemann, Seamus Power, I just think they're undervalued. They have better form than a lot of guys in this 9K range. I mean, you could transfer and flip-flop Will Zalatoris and Joaquin Niemann, and I wouldn't really know what to tell you. Like, I would feel the same way about both of them, where I would still want to play Joaquin Niemann, and I would still be off of Will Z sub 8K. So there you go.
I agree. I think Niemann, he's been a little disappointing, but it's a macro buy. He's just a player who can pop at any moment, elite scorer, can dismantle courses. I actually think this is a fine course for him. You've got Seamus, who I think is a little less volatile and whatnot, so you can go there. But it's time for 2 things. One, and they're correlated. It's time to hit the like button, because we do appreciate that. You're supporting the channel, helping us out in the swing season. It's good to see everyone, all the regulars in here. But it's also time to talk about Emiliano Grillo, who obviously I got a lot of questions on him on Twitter. What are we doing with him? So let me ask you, what are you doing with Grillo?
I'm the wrong person to ask, obviously.
No.
I think this is where we switch. This is where we switch the host and the analyst role, and we have a little bit of fun, or we have a therapy session. It's probably the latter, but I think Emiliano Grillo is a great play this week. And part of it is because I think the best kind of builds land you with multiple players in the 7K range. And he has to fall into that bucket of players that you have to be considering. I mean, I love Ian Poulter as well, right above him. I know our projections love Ian Poulter right above him as well. But Emiliano Grillo has really good, like, finally a spot where we've seen him play well here before as well. RBC Heritage, another golf course. You talk about these short little tricky tracks, things that can be coastal. You try to draw any kind of a narrative. Putting, if it's not going to be strictly correlated to a place like this, if it's going to be a little bit easier for the field, oh my God, Emiliano Grillo is expected to have some positive regression here. We've seen some weird stuff from him lately. This is a buy low spot. This is not a 7,500 player in this field. He should be 8Ks. I'm happy to be investing in him here.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to notice it because the course history, it stands out. But I think, again, it's not the course history, it's the course fit. When you talk about this course, if I didn't have any results, I would think, okay, Grillo would probably like this place. And he does. And that's why he probably plays well here more often than not. He's coming off a nice 73rd place finish where he beat Rahudu Imada, Garrett Higo, Doc Redman, and Peter Malnati. That's it. So that wasn't ideal. But again, I don't think that there is any correlation to how you played at the Zoizo and how you play here. I don't think any of that matters. I think there's limited correlation to any of these things. So for me, sign me up for Grillo. He's a linchpin of the mid-range. I have no problem buying into that quote unquote chalk.
I am right there with you. He's one of the, I mean, he's not even chalk. He's like 10%. So
yeah,
congratulations to both of us. We get a sub 10% of a missed cut. That'll be great.
Don't lock button him, please. I've done that.
I will not do that. I can promise you.
Talk to me about the lower sevens as we work down. You got Knox, who was really popular last week. CT Pan, Kuchar is there, Pat Perez, Stenson. I mean, can some of the things you talked about with Justin Rose apply to Stenson? I wish,
but Stenson, if you want to talk about, I think he's just dust. Okay. I don't know. He has like 48 kids. The kid, he's living his best life. He's Henrik Stenson. I mean, he had the kids that like ran into the fairway while he was playing that golf tournament. I don't remember where it was. I just am remembering things. I'm a little scatterbrained here today is basically what we're learning, but I will not be playing any Henrik Stenson for the love of God. I will play some Patrick Rogers. I will play I want to play. I was thinking I'd play Harold Varner, and our ownership just went and flipped on him. He's sitting at 15% now in this range, and that's just not going to happen for me whatsoever. I don't really even know what to make of a guy like CT Pan here in this spot, but I know that I'm going to have a little bit of him just because I think that at 7.4%, he's a guy that I've been playing a little bit more, I think, than expectation. There's pretty obvious times when he's chalk, you just kind of hit eject, but been decent enough. For me, the question for you, Matt Kuchar and Pat Perez, are you in or are you out on either of them?
So I don't have a ton of interest in Matt Kuchar. It's not that I hate the play. I do think guys like CT Pan and some of the other ones are a little more interesting. You know, Pan is a notorious. He's a winner at Heritage, Wyndham, Honda. He was third, RSM sixth. Like he likes these type of layouts. Pat Perez is interesting because I am going to mention grass types. He is one of the guys that he does seem to really like some of these type of whatever you want to call it, paspalum nonsense, former winner here as well. So
yeah, that's what
I get it. I get it. I have no problem with that. I don't think it's a range that you should really anchor. I'll be honest. I think there's better ranges, particularly the 8s, to be very aggressive, pick 2 or 3 guys and firmly go and build around them. I think at the bottom of the 7s, give me like 5. If I was building a ton of lineups, give me like 5 to 10% of all these guys in terms of Knox, Pan, Perez, even like Luke List, just a couple splashes, and I'll be just fine.
Okay, and that's what I'm doing. So yeah, that's cool. Glad we talked about that strategy. I have like 10% of both of them, and they're 3%. I mean, this entire bottom range, like I just think there's more unexpressed upside. People are building really balanced for whatever reason in this, upper 8, lower 9 range. There just seems like there's a lot of traction going in some of those spots. And for me, I'm just going to go more stars and scrubs. It's more of an NBA large slate for me where I can kind of get to the top end and I feel much more secure about that. And I don't think I'm giving up that much. I think there's legitimate, top 10 equity in a lot of these guys. So yeah, Pat Perez and Matt Kuchar, I'm going to just play 10%, cap them and move on with my week because 3% or 2.8 and 2.7% we have them at now is just way too low for me.
No doubt about it. I think that's well stated. And listen, in swing season, to me, we had a question earlier from chat asking about like, what's the most you would play a guy in a 20 max, how many shares? And the answer to me is 20. Like there are times where I'll lock someone. Swing season in particular, that would be almost impossible because I think there's so many more unknowns. It's such a better time to open up your portfolio and be a little more flat. You incur some negatives with that, but to me, this is a very difficult situation. I would rather have more shares, more golfers than just really honing in on a couple guys.
Well said. There's nothing I can add to that. That's perfectly said.
You know what else is perfectly said? If you want to join and be part of the team, Awesemo Plus. Look at that. Look at that. Awesemo Plus, tools, content, everything that we got going on. I know golf is not on people's minds, but NFL hoops, Eric and the team doing fantastic work. Awesemo Plus weekly passes for $29.95 are out there. There is no reason not to take a shot with it. Sign on up, give us a shot. PGA Live Before Lock, all one word. That is the promo code for 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. It's going to get you everything we talk about, from the tools, ownership, projections, Alex, all whole team, everyone who really, really, really believes in these tools and uses them each and every day. So come on in for a week. If it's not for you, no harm done. But we'd love to have you as part of the team. And then also very quickly, as you guys know, on the betting market, Awesemo Odds YouTube channel. If you haven't been over there, just go over there after the show. Check it out. We've got a lot of 5-minute videos, quick hitter videos. I'm on there a ton, Eric as well. I think you'll really enjoy it. If you enjoy betting, you enjoy having some fun, give us a look over there. Help us build that channel. Let's get to the salary savers. You mentioned you like these guys up top a lot. Okay. Where do you go in the 6s then?
So upper sixes, I think it's fascinating. Again, I had talked about Jaeger being somebody I thought I was going to get to. And the more I'm kind of digging into it, the more that I just don't really want to do it. Scott Piercy is gaining quite a bit of attention, which is surprising based on current form. But there are some factors where I think he's probably a better player than most of the other range. The guy I'm landing on is Tom Hoagie quite a bit. And our projections don't like him as much here. I think he makes some sense this week. I'm not like in love with him. We have one other guy in this range that I'm just absolutely in love with, but Tom Hoagie's a guy that I think has, you know, the ability to play well on a golf course like this. And the putter's been atrocious beyond atrocious, but the irons have been decent off the tee's been okay. Just, you know, in terms of like a pure punt down there, somebody that 17th Zozo, 14th Shriners, I'm gaining a little bit more off of it. He played really well at the Northern Trust, put himself in position at that golf tournament, but I really do like getting to a couple shares of him. So Tom Hoagie, the one guy. I'm very curious about this because it's probably going to be like, let me find my number. Yeah, he's my fourth highest owned golfer right now. So this is going to be embarrassing if you don't like this person. I think Charles Howell III is a great outright. I think he's a great top five. And I think he's live to win this golf tournament. And you can shake your head at this and do whatever you want to it. That's fair. He's 6,900, but 8th in strokes gained off the tee and around the green, pretty superb. It looks like that combination isn't exactly the worst recipe here. He's been really, really bad with the irons. I'm not going to try to make up any kind of a way to look at it better or worse than what it is, but seems like, OHL RSM from 2020, top 30s in both of those spots, 19th at the Sony, played really well right around this time of year in 2020. Going back to 2019, same situation, 20th at the OHL. You were looking fourth. Fortinet played really well in that fall season, and it was a little bit more ball striking centric. He was gaining quite a bit in every category again, except for the irons besides the Sony at that time of year. Seems like this time of year, Charles Howell III, I always think of him being a Riviera guy because he's been in playoffs and played really well in those kind of spots, but seems like he's kind of an early year candidate to play a little bit above expectation. And there's no ownership. Like there's legitimately zero ownership, zero opportunity cost that I have to be kind of worried about. And I just flat out believe him. Our ownership and our projections seem to believe in him. He's one of the higher projected players now in this range coming off of yesterday where I don't think he was popping this way, but Charles Howell III, I think makes a really, really intriguing option to pair with some builds where you're playing two of those top 10K studs.
I mean, listen, I think that's when you're talking about flyers down here, you're making a good case. It's a guy that he does have something about starting fast with these swing season events. I don't picture Charles Howell like as a Mayakoba guy, but the results do bear out that he's had some success on technical layouts and whatnot. Easier courses, certainly Sony would qualify in that regard. So I don't mind that. I think, again, it's not a range where you're going to be able to find guys up and down the 6Ks. I know, friend of the show, Tokyo Swan, just mentioned Johnny ? Johnny Hu. He's all the way down at 61. He does like these kind of tracks, and I don't think it's the craziest thing to go to him. And Molinax is down there as well. Anyone else in the sixes before we move on to kind of a couple betting things? And I got a hot take for you tonight.
Oh God, I'm so excited. Aaron Rai, because I'm just mad at him.
That guy.
I'm gonna upset play him. I'm gonna upset bet him for a top 10. He's gonna do it eventually. He's way better than this. I don't know what's going on. 6,700. His number keeps plummeting. Graham McDowell whisper. That's you. Any interest in him this week?
I mean, Graham McDowell is
He's
the type
0.4%.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Graham McDowell is like Luke Donald and a couple other players. He only can play good in a couple of events a year. Last week was one of them. I do think this is probably another. I don't really like it though. I just feel it feels kind of unnecessary. I'd rather get to Ches or Kirk, even Aaron Rai if I had to. So I think I'll retire I didn't know I was the GMAC whisperer, but if I am, I'm going to say, let's pass on that.
Okay. Well, you are, because you said last week, play him. And that was, you made the GMAC argument last week.
I did.
I'm just here to recall the things that you said that are so genius that you don't remember them
Smart.
yourself.
That's it. Ken had a really interesting question in chat. He was asking about Lucas Herbert and Pendrith meltdown. We kind of glossed over him. I'll just say real quick, I don't mind Pendrith. I prefer other guys in that range, the guys that you talked about earlier. But I think if you wanted to go to him, that makes total sense.
He should have probably won that golf tournament. So
yes, he should have.
There's really no way around it. He played really well. If you want to just say that he's playing really well here, hasn't missed a cut now in this swing season, hasn't missed a cut, played the Barbasol really well where dude was gaining off the tee, gaining with the putter, wasn't good around the green, and generally around the green is one of his strengths. So I do expect him, if he's hitting the ball well, to play pretty well in this range too. As I said, I can make an argument for, I think, absolutely everybody in the 7K range, with the exception of probably Brian Harman.
Okay, well then let's hope that Brian Harman doesn't beat that entire range.
He's the only guy.
That would be unfortunate for the show.
And I like Brian Harman. I always think that he's underpriced, but I'm just not going to do it this week. I can't do it.
All right. Hot take time. Here we go. What do you got? JT Poston season. Maybe. What do you have in the hopper here?
So, I mean, I told you I had a pretty nice betting slip here. Taylor Gooch. You can find some 50+ to ones. I mean, there are some nice numbers Taylor Gooch is way too good here. Justin Rose as well, part of the betting card, but I'm going to drop all the way down here. I've got a top 5 guy that, I mean, I talked about him here earlier, Charles Howell III. I don't know how you get hotter take than that. I think he plays really, really well this week. You can find a 20 to 1 around the industry. That's a pretty nice number, but going 101, 125 to 1 in a number of spots as well, that's just too long for me. I think he sets up well. He has the same kind of number as Taylor Pendrith, if you want to have a comparison for one specific sports book. I mean, a guy who just finished off a 5th there. I think Charles Howell has that kind of upside. So I'm going to bet him. He's kind of a conviction play for me this week, and somebody that makes all of my other builds work. So if he can make a cut, score well, I probably won't be upset either way, but I'm going to bet him just in case I'm right.
Oh, I have no problem with that. It's always good to lock down. That's why betting is so important. You can really capture some things that you can't do on the DFS side. That is why, again, the Awesemo Odds channel can really help you do that. Go check that out. I gave this exact hot take a couple weeks ago, and it was bad. And then the guy rebounded, and he played pretty good at Zoizo. Once again, I think that if you need a flyer in the 6K range, that Troy Merritt is in play. Troy Merritt fits this course a lot better than you would think. He's actually pretty well-rounded. He's got a good short game. The irons aren't elite, but they're not terrible. He's been driving the ball just fine. He's just very fluky. He was 16th at Fortnite, miscut at Shriners, 28th at Zoizo. He's been bouncing around, but this guy pops occasionally with a top 10, a top 5, and it's mostly at technical type tracks. He was 8th at Valspar. He's had some really good results at Heritage, St. Jude, things like that. The other spots he does really good, Barbasol. Well, that's because it's super easy. Rocket Mortgage, super easy. API, not super easy, but, you know, again, some of the similarities. I think an easier type of track in a par 71 type venue is the right groundwork. That doesn't mean he's going to play good, but at least kind of like Graham McDowell in the sense that I think that Troy Merritt only has a couple opportunities here and there. I think this could be one of them. So 12 to 1 for a top 10, not the worst. He is on my betting card.
Recycling hot takes. I am disappointed.
You know what?
Guy, Greg SJ1 calling you out. Shots fired. You want a hot take? Golden Flashes. Kent State is going to end up winning the MAC. Come talk to me in a month after they beat Northern Illinois. What's the number on it right now?
But I don't know. They're playing right now. I'm just saying.
Aren't you a professional? How do you not have?
They're the best
access to that number
in the MAC.
The Kent State. It is Maction, baby. Absolute Maction night.
Anyway,
I love it.
That's what we're going to do right now. Friends, thanks for stopping in. And as always, if you guys have any questions, at Eric Lindquist, at JazzRazDFS. Best way to reach us, get in the Awesemo Discord. Sign on up for a week. Hop on in there. We've got the whole team ready and eager to answer your questions. Thanks to my man Mike behind the glass. Did a great job as usual. Good luck, my friends. Enjoy OHL. We'll talk to you. Not OHL. Mayakoba. Sorry about that, sponsors. Enjoy that. Good luck. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Sam Smith editorial.
I can't remember these sponsors. Too many sponsors, golf tournaments.